All right, very excited to talk to one of our DraftKings brethren here. You guys may know him as a former Major League pitcher, the co-host of Baseball is Dead, wherever you get your podcasts, along with Jared Carabas. But right now, we also get to add another title. What's going on, Coach? How we doing?
GoJo, hey, thanks for having me, first of all, man. Yeah, a little coach, if you will. No, that's that just sounds weird and foreign coming off the tongue. But yeah, out here in spring training, out here in Arizona, taking camp in. I'll be out here for a couple weeks. But yeah, as you said, I'm out here. I guess you could call it coaching. I'm more roaming, being present. I'm sure by the end of it, taking up space and in the way. But you know how it goes, man. Anytime you have the opportunity to share just a little bit of what it is that you've learned along the way, if you think that can help make an impact, if other people think that what you know can make an impact, I would always feel like it's your job or it's your responsibility to impart whatever 2 minutes of wisdom you might have on somebody who's looking to get where you may have been. Because I think it is, as we are a part of a brotherhood, a sisterhood, just the family that is sport, you want to see the people behind you coming up make the sport better, do better than you did, and continue to grow the game you love so much. So with an opportunity to do that, I jumped at it.
Yeah, it's awesome because you have seen the game from a lot of vantage points as a player, as someone not only talking about it on the podcast, but broadcasting for the A's as well. So you've seen all kind around it. And I know this is a player that the question that I got asked when I finished up playing in college, my dad got asked when he finished playing up in pros, is, do you want to get into coaching? Was that something that you always knew, hey, I wanted to maybe in some form or fashion find my way to?
Yes. And it wasn't something that I ever thought was going to be readily available to me or present itself. And it's not to say that, me being here now is just a precursor to me joining a field staff next year. Like this is me understanding the player development side of things and essentially getting that, elementary education, laying that foundation. But I think when you're passionate about something, you gravitate towards learning more about it and understanding that you're never going to know all of it and you just want to know more. And that's where I find myself and have found myself with this game of baseball. So it was something that was on my radar. Never knew when it was going to be something I pinpointed or really honed in on. But again, just the opportunity to be around the game more and share what I've learned, that's really exciting. And I think there's an essence of fulfillment there that I think we're all after in whatever area of life it might be. If you feel like you're waking up and you're making a difference, it doesn't matter what it is you're doing. Like I've always said, if I had the ability to dig a ditch the way I had the ability to throw a changeup, buddy, let me tell you, you'd have the clearest canals and the clearest irrigation to lay in that this world has ever seen. Like you would take pride in doing that. And so it's just, I want to know that whatever it is I've learned, if someone's asking the questions, I have an answer for them. And I just want to help somebody get better.
It's awesome. There's no substitute for putting your hand in the pile and also getting to help out a team atmosphere like that. So digging ditches or throwing pitches, Dallas Braden's got you covered. And you came in at a spring where extra instruction may be a bit required. We've got all the new rules going into place. The pitch clock has been the big story coming off this weekend in spring training. So what has the approach and conversation been like for you and pitchers and really everyone digesting that new rule in particular?
Well, first of all, there's a group of guys who are accustomed to this, who are used to this being implemented in the minor leagues. It's not completely foreign to them. It's this, it's the savvier vets, the saltier vets that are a little more gristled that you're going to kind of have to ease into something like this. And I think what it's going to do is sort of serve as that shock collar and remind guys that, hey, this is about having a game plan. This is about being prepared, and this is about strapping it on and getting after it in a timely fashion. And we talk about creating rhythm on the mound so often, and we talk about trying to keep game flow at a certain pace because the guys behind us are relying on us to make pitches, to allow them to create a flow, to get used to the rhythm you're laying down for them. That's how plays behind you get made. That's how guys lay out, backhand, pop up, throw a dime across the diamond because they're anticipating stuff like that. They want the ball, and you're giving them that vibe. You're giving them that rhythm to dance to out there. So now there's a visual for you to remind you, hey, guy, make sure you're locked in, make sure you're ready to go. And there's also conversation about strategically how to go about this, because if I need a little breather, can my catcher hold on to the ball just a hair longer to give me a little bit? Well, they're going to tell the catcher, hey, buddy, I see what you're doing here. I'm privy to you stalling here. Let's get it going. So the conversation, I think, initially is more of a reminder of how important it is for our pitchers to have a game plan and be ready to go out there and execute that game plan, and combine that with the feel of the game itself and your homework. And we should not be out there taking 25, 30 seconds in between pitches. So I think for the guys who are used to it, it's nothing new. The vets, look, these are elite athletes. What do elite athletes do? They adjust, and they adjust better than anybody else on the planet. And that's what they're going to do. But the strategy around it, that's going to be interesting to watch.
It has been overall, I think, really well received. Like, you haven't heard players griping about this. You've heard a lot of great conversation about just what you described, and also different guys weighing in on who they think has the early advantage. I saw Max Scherzer saying he loves because it allows pitchers to kind of dictate the pace. Aaron Judge said it's on the hitting side. He really liked the rhythm it allowed. Do you think there's one side or another that it favors in the early going here?
I would hate see like the mental warrior in me wants to tell you that there's no difference here. It's all about how you're processing this. What is your mentality? And for me, I took a hunter's mentality out there with me. So if you're telling me there's a clock now, well, guess what? I'm going to dictate that clock. I'm going to be on the mound, and I'm going to be ready to go. Give you an example. We talk about with men on base, holding the baseball and disrupting the timing of the runner so he can't advance and steal second or third. And you're also combined, you are disrupting the timing of the hitter as well. How do you do that? You hold the ball at times, and at times you get it and go. So you're disrupting those two times, right? Well, if I'm on the clock, I might not have a lot of time to hold the ball unless I'm on the mound with the ball in my hand, locked and loaded, ready to deliver. And now I'm watching 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Now I can make you count along with me. And now who's uncomfortable? You are, not me. I've got the game plan. I'm setting the speed limit. I am dictating the tone of this game. So it's all about whether or not your glass is half full or half empty. Are you hunting or are you being hunted?
It's the $1 million question, but it's so far it does seem like I've heard a lot more comments of people taking the hunter's mentality and doing. I think there's pride that comes with every athlete that says, I can go out through my work and my preparation and dictate how this is going to go and respond to these rules. From the big picture standpoint, though, if you're going to zoom out from not just the player standpoint and say for the game, because what we saw over the weekend that made headlines was a game ending on a called strike there because of a pitch clock violation. How worried are you that that might show up in a big moment somewhere for baseball and all of a sudden dominate conversation the way we saw a penalty that ended the Super Bowl, quite frankly, just dominate conversation coming off that last game?
Well, I mean, in the Super Bowl, as far as I'm concerned, a penalty was called. And it's unfortunate that a penalty occurred, but a penalty was committed and a penalty got called. And I think that's kind of how rules go, right? If they're broken, you're supposed to acknowledge that. But anyway, I cashed out. Sorry about it. The whole idea of understanding the rules and trying to find a loophole or trying to figure out a way to bend them to your advantage or to, that's all part of any sort of competition. But I think ultimately right now, as far as the pitcher's perspective goes, I think it's advantage pitcher because they can get on the mound. They can get ready to run. Mike, we just had an at-bat start with a 1-1 count. Not a single pitch was thrown, and the count was 1-1. Why? Because the hitter was not in the box, engaged and ready to rock, and the pitcher was not ready. So you're going to see this kind of stuff. I would absolutely hate to see a moment or like a ticket ready to get punched to October, and that happens. That's brutal. But that leads us back to the conversation we're having about these athletes adjusting. I'd like to think that if you know it's nut cutting time and you've got to go, you got to make a pitch, you're not going to let your actual clock, your literal clock, run out on you.
Well, and I'm always curious because this is new in a lot of cases for umpires who are going to have to be the ones in charge of all this. And every year, a lot of sports go in with new added points of emphasis, and they're going to be hard on them right now. I'm sure in spring training, they're going to, hey, we're going to err on the side of calling everything by the letter of the law.
Oh.
And then once you get to the regular season, I do wonder if there's a little bit more wiggle room, if there's a little bit more grace, because you don't necessarily, if you're the umpire now, this comes up plenty, but don't want to be the story.
Well, think about this too. Always remember that in an effort to try to limit human element, you are involving human.
Yeah.
Who do you think? You think the clock just starts on its own up there? No, that's a human being that's starting the clock up there. So I was really curious to watch and see, because there is protocol, 30 seconds in between at bats. That's how much time you have. So there's moments where, hey, say on a backswing, a foul ball, catcher gets hit with the bat, right? Maybe the clock operator doesn't see that and starts it go, and now you've got to call time, and there's a bunch going on there, but it's all about the feel of the timekeeper and whether or not they're paying attention to the game. And today we had four infractions in today's game alone, and they didn't come in huge pivotal parts of the game. Granted, it's spring training. I don't know that those necessarily exist, but it's still, you're trying to keep track and figure out where you're at. And are you ratcheting it up now? And are you operating within the confines of the game, the construct of the game now? And I mean, it's, could you imagine what this world would look, what the baseball world would look like should October fall on a strike three that never gets thrown?
It's going to burn.
Do you want to be that? You want to be that umpire making that call? You want to be the guy running out there? Like, it's, I mean, and I've talked to guys, and also humans, they are. I try not to tell people that they're too human, but umpires matter too. They're people too, and the responsibility that these guys have on their plate over the last 5 years has grown exponentially. Man, they were here to call ball, strike, safe, out, fair, foul. They're batting out of order. And now you've got mound visits, limits, pitch clocks. Like, it's just, there's a whole lot going on, man.
It is. There's a ton. So it's great that you remind people the human element of this is going to be something to monitor early on, but it is human beings trying to do their best. Some of the other rule changes you mentioned, the shift being banned going into this year, the larger bases, haven't really heard as much about that just because of the story of the weekend, but how's that been a factor so far?
Well, the shift, actually, one of the infractions today was a shift infraction. The infielder started with his feet half on the grass, half on the dirt. Nope, can't happen. That's a ball. No pitch. So oh man, the adjustments they're going to be there. I don't see that making a huge difference. I don't see that being an infraction that persists, because that's just quite literally not looking at where your feet are, not knowing where you're physically at on the baseball field. Like, you got to be practicing dumb to screw that up once we start to get this thing rolling. But the bigger bases, I know there was a lot of talk about whether or not this was going to create more aggression on the base path, which is something I would love to see. And I know A's fans specifically have been excited about that, because A's fans grew up with the Man of Steel, with Ricky Henderson. Right? And they're thinking, are you telling me that the game is now going to have more dudes like that a part of this game? Like, I am all in, super excited about that. Haven't seen it turn into a track meet because the bases are now an inch bigger all the way around. That's not the case. I mean, maybe if we have a few less blown ankles because of bang bang plays at first, then hey, great job. We did our work. But, I don't know that we're going to see people threatening Lou Brock and Ricky Henderson because the bases are an inch bigger.
Overall, it seems like with all this change coming at once, though, saw the stat come out today that the average game time is already down about 23 minutes. And it seems like from, an outsider, from just a general fan of baseball, not someone who lives it, that most of this is designed to speed up the action a little bit, get more balls in play, that type of thing. Do you think overall, the question that gets asked a lot, are these good changes for baseball? Are these things that you think help the game in some way, or is it just tinkering because they feel like they needed to tinker?
I don't know if it's That's a phenomenal question because I don't know if it's a combination of the two. You're trying to listen to the fans, you're trying to evolve with the times, and at the same time, you're trying to maintain a certain level of integrity with this game. And I think that goes across all sport when you start thinking about changes and, keeping up with the Joneses, if you will. How do we do this without losing sight of who we are? And I think what you're going to run into is the understanding of you think you're eliminating downtime in the game of baseball. But during that quote unquote downtime, that is where games within the game are played. Because during that quote unquote downtime, you want to know what's going on. Signs are being given and relayed. And if you've been paying attention to baseball at all in the last 5 years or so, you understand how valuable signs are and communicating signs are. So those little nuances to the game, those things are happening in real time. Because the difference between me throwing a 1-1 pitch that turns into a 2-1 count or a 1-1 pitch that turns into a 1-2 count, well, the batting average changes 150 points. The damage they do at the plate increases almost 200 points. So I'm thinking about what pitch I need to make to either get rid of this guy or survive the storm I've just created for myself. And now you're putting all of that thinking on a clock. And so there's an adjustment that has to occur with that. But I think that we are trying to do our level best to attract attention. And you do that because we have short attention spans. We're trying to increase that, right? Like I just hope we don't get to a point where we've made so many wholesale changes at one time that we're scrambling and grasping back at what used to be the game we loved.
Yeah, it's always the risk that you run, but like you've said, so far the reception seems positive. It seems like guys are able to make this adjustment. And then you get to turn your attention to all of the baseball. And I am curious, obviously, you're going to be dialed in on the A's, excited for that season. But as you look around Major League Baseball, the Mets and Padres just keep spending money this offseason. We've seen them make a ton of big moves. Speaking of signs, the Astros still look like the dominant force in the American League. So when you look out across baseball, what's the thing you're most excited to see get going in this preseason?
I think, honestly, it has to be, this is me just, kind of paying attention to my brothers in arms, if you will. But I want to see what sort of impact JV and Scherz have together. Like that's just going to be an assault on the NL East. I can't wait to see two. Those are, you want to talk about two grizzly, salty gunslingers in Scherzer and Verlander. Like, buddy, let me tell you, that's going to be exciting to watch. Again, not to mention because of the other underlying storylines with Uncle Stevie and the money he's spending, but that takes the focus for me. And you mentioned it, goalie, out west, because as of right now, I believe Fangraphs has the Friars, the San Diego Dads, slated somewhere around 92, 93 wins, I think, something like that. I don't think the Dodgers are projected to win that many ball games, which means the San Diego Padres are projected to take this division. And I think you've got to be numb if you're not excited about looking at that San Diego Padre lineup, because that thing is daunting. That is a meat and potatoes 2 through 5 that you want no part of, ladies and gentlemen. That right there is, for me, going to be where my eyes are centered this summer, is the Dodgers and the Padres. Because I go back to 2 years ago when the Dodgers are playing unbelievable baseball. They're beating the pants, just beating the brakes off everybody, and so are the Giants. And over a 41 game span, I believe, goalie, you want to know how many games were made up in the division? Exactly one.
Wow.
One. They played baseball for a month plus, and one game was made up. So, Giants not part of that conversation, but Jesus, what the Padres are doing. They're ridiculous. And then, hey, look, the NL East, right? The Braves, they just keep signing people up for 10 years at a time. But Trey Turner, the addition out in Philly, like, can he Can he vault that offense? Can he get those guys going? They added Taiwan Walker to that rotation. So I think there's storylines smattered all throughout the game of baseball. What does the AL Central look like, frankly? Are the Chicago White Sox going to show up and try to take care of a division one time? Holler at your boy. Minnesota Twins got their guy back. So are they going to make some noise with Carlos and Buxton? I'd love to see Buxton again, healthy, another MVP caliber year. He's just exciting for baseball. That dude is just fucking electric. Electric. Love every minute of that guy healthy on a baseball field. How about the AL East? The Blue Jays, goalie. The Blue Jays. A guy I slated last year as a potential Cy Young winner did everything he could to make me look like I had never watched baseball a day in my life. That's Jose Barrios. Things get better for him. The Jays could make some noise. The Jays could be banging up in the 6, and before you know it, who knows, the Yankees, who I think are, again, expected to do well, I think the Blue Jays are going to ask them to hold their beer.
Hey, you get me fired up right now, man. Big year for fathers, big year for a lot of the new talent that we've seen acquired all over Major League Baseball. It's going to be a blast, and it's all just getting started now. Dallas, know you got a lot going on out in spring training, man, so appreciate you taking the time. Thanks so much, and we'll definitely be talking to you as the season goes along.
Much love, Goalie. Appreciate you, brother.
Boom. Money in the bank.